We left Puerto Iguazu and started to make our way south again through the province of Misiones, Argentina. One thing we've noticed is that here in Argentina in general, and in Misiones specifically, there's a lot more motorcyclists on the road. About 49% of them blast by us at speeds we could never hope to match. And another 49% of them take a more relaxed approach, similar to ours. They're probably enjoying all the beautiful scenery. And about 2% of the motorcyclists we see invite us into their house and feed us delicious chunks of meat cooked over an open fire.
Hola, ¿qué tal? Buen día. Para nosotros los argentinos es un gusto compartir con todos ustedes, los motociclistas. Yo también soy motociclista y mi saludo a todos los motociclistas del mundo, porque nosotros, como ustedes, somos los mensajeros de la paz. Entonces, apenas lo hemos visto ayer, aquí en nuestra ciudad de 2 de mayo, Misiones, Argentina. Le invitamos a los motociclistas a que vengan a gustar de nuestro asado criollo misionero. Ahí va el saludo para todos ustedes.
Our new friend Eldor here has a veritable herd of motorcycles parked in his garage. And on top of feeding us an excellent asado lunch, he sent us on our way with lots of tasty treats from his garden, including some giant avocados. We also stopped at this awesome little motorcycle workshop for some lubrication and odds and ends, and they gave me a free t-shirt, which may not seem like a big deal to you, but since I've been using the same 2 shirts for about 7 months, I couldn't have asked for a more perfect gift. We continued on through the millions of acres of timber farms that cover every scrap of Misiones that's not protected as a national park. And eventually we arrived at this charming little campsite outside of the city of Soberbio, which came with free piglet service and included its own complimentary waterfall. We came here to see Salto de Moconá, another famous waterfall, but unfortunately there was so much water in the river that the entire waterfall was completely submerged. So instead we spent the day hiking around in the forest, observing the local wildlife, which proved increasingly difficult to film, with the exception of this beetle on a stick. But fortunately the visitor center had a pretty cool skull collection, which are, from largest to smallest, coati, wild feline, tiny deer, small peccary, large peccary, and tapir. I personally found the tapir to be the most interesting. They look pretty weird on the outside, but their skulls are also exceptionally strange.
Flying reindeer crossing.
While the province of Misiones technically sits outside of the tropics, you can still find lots of very tropical looking things here, including this orchid in full bloom that was about the size of my motorcycle.
And so here's our home, our campsite. This is Argentina, and that's Brazil over there on the other side of the river.
Unlike the United States, the vast majority of Argentina's borders are made up of actual physical objects. In the north, it's mostly rivers, and in the west, it's all the Andes Mountains.
So in another first for the trip, we just drove through our first swarm of bees.
Yeah, I have one here.
There's one inside of Gabby's jacket here.
Now look at this.
A few of them are dead inside of my helmet. But I don't think any of them got into my clothes, or so far no stings. I think we're good. We're just there's dead bees everywhere. It was a massacre. Dead bee.
Yeah.
They're all in the motorcycle. There's like there's another one. Oh man, so many dead bees.
Okay, you can.
Here's a fun fact. That truck was really loud. Here's a fun fact. Bee guts are sweet. They taste just like honey.
Yep.
I guess that's not surprising.
When a beehive is particularly productive, they will grow a new queen and split the colony in 2. Half of the bees will drink as much honey as they can, and then leave the colony with the new queen in search of a new home. And this is exactly what we ran into on the highway.
We've encountered our first rain delay of the trip. Around midday we saw a pretty large thunderstorm looming on the horizon, so we made a beeline for the nearest campground, which turned out to be perfect as it has a giant roof which we put the tent under. And it's still raining now, so we're gonna just wait it out here and see what happens.
And we were quite happy to wait for the storm to pass, sitting under our giant roof, congratulating ourselves on our great luck in finding this incredible campsite. And then this happened.
Our campsite has been descended upon by hostel on wheels. I have a feeling it's going to be a long and noisy night.
Fortunately, I slept alright thanks to my earplugs, which I would definitely add to the list of indispensable items to bring on a trip. We managed with great luck to dodge all of the storms the following day, and arrived safely at our next national park.
So this is Parque Nacional El Palmar, which roughly translates to Lots of Palms National Park. You might be able to see why. And it's full of the usual suspects, including this guy, who is guarding the trail. I'm not sure if he's going to let us pass. Let's see. Oh, thank you.
After a gray and drizzly day exploring Lots of Palms National Park, we headed for the small country of Uruguay.
So the crossing from Argentina into Uruguay was so fast I barely even noticed that it happened. It took us 20 minutes to do everything, which is awesome. So yeah, way to go Uruguay for having all of your ducks in a row.
We are Uruguay.
Not only was the border crossing super easy, but they had a tourist information station with Wi-Fi and a Western Union inside, right at the border. So again, way to go Uruguay.
So far, Uruguay wins the easiest country award. Crossing the border took 20 minutes. We arrived at the first little town. We were able to change money, withdraw money from the bank right there, buy my patch for my bag right there, get our lunch right there, and there's Wi-Fi right there. So maybe we should just stay here forever. Here's a few more reasons why Uruguay is awesome. They have ATMs in the gas stations, just like the United States. And free condoms in the bathrooms.
We stopped at a small motorcycle workshop and they gave us an old bicycle inner tube to replace the bungees that we bought in Ecuador that were of absolutely deplorable quality. The bicycle inner tube worked so well that I don't think I will ever buy another bungee in my entire life. Late in the day we arrived at our next workaway site, the farm of Estela and Walter. Estela and Walter have a couple hundred cattle and sheep, including this sheep who is about to become our dinner. Here I should probably warn you that if the process of turning a living animal into food makes you uncomfortable, you should probably turn the video off. If you want to have mutton for dinner, the first thing you have to do is cut the artery that runs behind the jawbone that supplies blood to the brain. When done correctly with a sharp knife, the sheep has a quick and relatively painless death. Next, you have to skin the animal, and then you hang it by its hind legs to facilitate the removal of the organs. Next, you open the abdomen, taking care not to cut into the intestines or stomach. At this point, you can remove and set aside those organs that are generally considered good to eat, like the heart, kidneys, and liver, and you can give the rest to the dogs and cats and let them go to town on it. Next, you cut the animal in half so that it will cool down quicker. It's important to let the meat cool quickly as possible to prevent spoilage. In the cool of the Uruguayan winter, the meat only needed to hang outside for a couple of hours before it was cool enough to continue the butchering process. And since the organs spoil more quickly than the rest of the meat, we got to feast on those for lunch that day. I personally took a liking to the heart, but the kidneys and liver were also quite good. But of course it isn't all death and dismemberment here. These little lambs had the misfortune to be born in the middle of a cold rainstorm to a horrible mother, so we were tasked with caring for them. The mother eventually accepted one of the babies, but rejected the other. So a couple times per day, Gabby had the incredibly cute job of bottle feeding a baby lamb. And at least once a day we got to dine on the delicious remains of its older and unluckier cousin. It's hard to part from such an overwhelming abundance of cuteness, but eventually we pried ourselves away from our fuzzy adopted babies and made our way towards our next workaway site. On our way there, we learned that Uruguay has National Motorcyclist Day. Just another reason Uruguay is awesome. Our next workaway was the remote but incredibly beautiful El Recoveco in the hills outside of Villa Serrano. We spent much of our time here attempting to restore order to their workshop and repairing broken tools. And while working on their greenhouse, we got to share with them some of the tips we learned from the super awesome Fernandez family in Bellavista. And best of all, they shared with us a bunch of their seeds from their gigantic and awe-inspiring seed bank. The only way to get internet out here is to hike up a small mountain with the computer. But on the plus side, the view is good, and there's a friendly horse to keep you company. Luckily for us, when it came time to leave El Recoveco, our host invited us to come visit his family's place outside of Punta del Este. In the summertime, Punta del Este is super touristy-ville, but in the wintertime, as you might expect, its big sandy beaches are almost abandoned, and there's really not a whole lot to do except go see the giant hands sticking out of the sand. We had a pleasant afternoon stroll around the point, accompanied by a nice sunset, and then, the next morning, we decided to head off to Montevideo. That's all for now. Thanks everyone for all your support and encouragement, and as usual, if you have any questions or comments, please let me know. We'll see you all next time.